Hi there, this is Dan Lyons from howtomakepodcastlikeapro.com. Well, last time we caught up, I showed you the two things that I use in Adobe Audition to make my audio sound radio quality. Now, a lot of you emailed me and said, but I don't have Adobe Audition and I don't really have $500 to spend buying it. So this is why I'm making this video, to show you how you can get the same effect using Audacity, which is a free editor and runs on both PC and Mac. So let's get into it. Here we are in Audacity. Now, I've already done a little bit of preparation here. I've got my waveform. As you can see, this is a really uneven waveform, and I've done that deliberately. So I've got some fairly okay levels here, then they sort of blow out a bit and get quite loud, and then they get really, really quiet at the end. Now, like I said, I've done this deliberately to show you the effect of two tools that we're going to go through in today's video. Now, both of these tools are things that, as a radio DJ, I use on all of my audio before I broadcast it, because it really sweetens up the sound of my audio. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is equalization. Now, I don't want to sort of load you with too much information, because it's just going to get crazy. I mean, we could write a thesis on equalization, but we're going to try and keep it really simple. So let me show you how we put an equalization on this waveform. So we select the whole waveform, we go up to Effect, we go down to Equalization. Now, what is this line here, and what is this range from, 30 hertz right up to 10,000 hertz? What is that all about? That is your equalization range. So within this range, if you adjust certain frequencies, the sound of your waveform is going to change. You may have heard of musicians or recording engineers listening to some music and then saying, oh, that song needs a lot more top end, or it needs a lot more bottom end. What they're talking about here is a group of frequencies within this spectrum. So if somebody says that song needs more top end, they're talking about generally these frequencies to the right of this spectrum. And top end, adding top end, gives something, or makes something sound very crisp and very clear and very clean. Okay? If they're talking about the bottom end, they're talking about the bass frequencies. So if you're adding more bottom end to a waveform, you make it sound a lot more bassier, perhaps a little bit muddier as well. So, an artist like Barry White obviously has a lot of bass in his voice. So the sound engineers, when they did an equalization on his voice, may have had to take some bass out with the equalization because he had too much natural bass. Now, there is no hard and fast rule about equalization, because we all have different voices, thank God. Obviously, we're all very unique. So this really is a case of just experimentation. Generally, what I find works really well for me is adding a fair bit of top end, because I like things to be really crisp and really clear. So I add a bit of top end there, and I like to add a little bit of bass too, because it's been scientifically proven that people enjoy listening to a voice that has a degree of bass in it. So even if you don't have a lot of natural bass in your voice, you can increase the bass that you do have by playing around with the bottom end. Okay, so this kind of is what my equalization looks like. I like to put a little bit of mids up in there as well. Mids primarily, or middle frequencies, primarily determine how muddy something is. So you need to play around with that. If you want to put for example, telephone effect on a voice and make it sound like someone's talking to a telephone, what you would do is strip the waveform of the bass frequencies. So from about here down, you would pull everything down. And then the mid frequencies, you would just put through the roof, push right up. And then you would play around with the top frequencies and the high-end frequencies and move those up as well. But that's not what we're doing. We're not putting a telephone effect on our voice. But I might do another tutorial about that very soon. Okay, so this looks to me to be pretty good, but it's not good enough just for it to look okay. It has to sound okay. So let's preview and see how that's come up. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Nice. Okay, well that to me sounds okay. It sounds really crisp. It sounds really clear. Now let me show you just quickly what happens when we overindulge in the top end. Yes, this can be a really easy mistake to make. Okay, let's preview that. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Ow, it almost hurts your ears, doesn't it? What I've done there is I've added too much top end to that waveform, and in turn what we've now got is this thing called sibilance, where things are too crisp and it's almost too cutting on your ears. So that's what happens when we overindulge. So we want to pull it right back down again to that level that we're previously happy with. And I think what you'll find is if you go over the top with any of these frequencies in terms of boosting them or cutting them out, you're going to see a huge difference in the sound. So it's all moderation. You don't need to mess around with an EQ too much to get that great sound. So we're happy with that and we want to OK it. Now, just before I do OK it, let's keep your eye on the waveform and see how it changes. Because generally what happens when you add a bit of top end is you're going to exacerbate some of the peaks. So some of the peaks in the waveform are actually going to get worse. Let's have a look. Yeah, as you can see, primarily around this section here, the waveform actually peaked more because I added those top end frequencies and boosted them. That's okay though, because we can fix that with this next thing that I'm about to show you, which is compression. Let me talk about compression a bit. Basically what compression does is it takes the loudest points in your waveform, which are these bits around here, and brings them closer to the quieter bits of your waveform. So in other words, it evens out the whole waveform. Now a compression really is so crucial when you're getting your podcast audio in shape, because so often there will be podcasters who, you know, host a show with somebody else and they're having a laugh and they're having a joke, and you know, sometimes the laughter can be really hot on the mic. What I mean by that is, you know, they're too close to the microphone when they're laughing, and so you get these huge spikes of audio where there's laughter, but then generally the rest of the podcast is quite low. So how do you go about fixing that? Because it's awful to listen to. You know, somebody's listening and they've got this great volume, steady volume, then they hear this laughter and it just blows their ears out. Well, one of the things that helps take care of that problem is compression. It does even out the sound. Let's go and take a look. So we highlight the wave, we click Effect, and we go to Compressor. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff here that you really don't need to know. I'm not a huge technical person. I mean, I know how this stuff works, but I really don't want to bore you with it. Safe to say that the threshold is really what we're interested in. Now, what the threshold is basically, it's this compressor saying to you, okay, where do you want me to start compressing the audio? Do you want me, if I move this slider right down, you'll see the yellow line comes right down the bottom. Do you want me to start compressing this audio just from go, from the first thing, from the quietest volume? Do you want me to start compressing? Or would you like me to start compressing only when it gets really, really, really loud, which is up here? Well, a good range to mess around with is between minus 10 dB and minus 16 dB. So I'm going to go stay safe at minus 14 dB. Now, I will say at this point as well, you don't want to go overboard with the compression. If you start playing around, you know, minus 38 dB, that type of compression is so hard that it will literally crush your audio. And it will strip a lot of the frequency boosting and cutting that we did with the equalization, because it will just smash your audio. That's not what we want to do. We want to let this waveform breathe, but we want to pull the loudest parts down. Okay, we don't want to completely stomp all over the audio. So let's go back up to minus 14. Let's have a listen. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1. Okay, that to me sounds all right. So I'm happy with that style of compression. Leave the ratio and the attack time there. Let's click OK and have a look at how the waveform changes. Wow, fantastic. So that was pretty clear, wasn't it? I mean, the loudest points that we had was sort of in this range here, and now they've come right down. So let's check it out, see how it sounds. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. That is why we use compression. So there we go. The waveform is looking a hell of a lot healthier, a hell of a lot happier. It's going to be easier for the listener to listen to. And it's so basic to do, to put that compression on and the equalization. That is how you get broadcast quality sounding audio. It's not that hard. It's very easy. And this program is absolutely free. So mess around with those things. I think the key is experimentation. Like I said, everyone's voice is different, so different rules are going to apply. Experiment around, and please let me know how you go. I hope you've enjoyed the video. And remember, for more tips and tricks to get your own online radio show, or in other words, a podcast, check out my website, howtomakepodcastslikeapro.com. Until next time, I've been Dan Lyons. Take care.